Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 o'clock right on the dot by my watch, so we're going to go ahead and get started to make sure we can take full advantage of our hour that we have today. I'd like to invite everyone to come in and find a seat. We've got some folks in the back. If you're having trouble finding a seat, we'll try and help point one out for you. Before we get started today, I'd like to just kindly ask everyone to put your phones on vibrate, if you could, just to minimize any disruptions that we might have during the presentation. On behalf of Holstein Association USA, I'd like to welcome each of you to this afternoon's virtual farm tour, and thank you for taking the time to be with us. My name is Lindsay Warden, and I'm the Executive Director of Holstein Genetic Services for Holstein Association USA, based out of Brattleboro, Vermont. I'm very excited to introduce you to King's Ransom Holsteins in Schuylerville, New York, as well as the family behind it. We're fortunate to have several family members with us today. We have Jan and Jeff King, as well as Jeff's wife, Becky, and son, Adam, if you guys just want to give a quick wave. And you'll get to hear much more from them here very shortly. So we're going to show you a video that we've prepared, which covers several aspects of the operation, including their elite registered Holsteins, as well as their on-farm milk bottling plant. If you haven't had a chance to already, we've got some milk straight from the farm there, ice-cold chocolate milk in the back, so I'd invite you to sample some of that. You can feel free to grab some at any time or as you're leaving the presentation. Following the video, the King brothers will be happy to answer any questions you might have about their business. So without further ado, we'll get started with our video.
Welcome to King's Ransom Farm!
Hello and welcome to King's Ransom Farm and King Brothers Dairy. My name's Jan King, and along with my brother Jeff, we operate a registered Holstein farm. Our farm is located in Saratoga County in eastern New York. We farm along the Hudson River, and we're about halfway between New York City and Montreal. Today, Jeff and I milk a little over 1,000 registered Holsteins and crop about 2,900 acres. That includes corn, alfalfa, grass, and soybeans. Registered Holsteins. Our first freestall barn was built in 1972, and while Jeff and I were growing up on the farm, we milked about 140 registered cows. In the early 90s, Jeff and I both graduated from Cornell University, and at that point, we decided to expand the cows that we were milking. Through the 90s and the early 2000s, we had a progression of different freestall barns that were built, and we went from 140 cows to about 800, and in the last 5 years, we've increased another couple hundred cows to just over 1,000. My father, when he graduated from college in the early 60s, started here at this location milking registered Guernseys. By the end of the 60s, he decided to start switching from Guernseys to registered Holsteins.
Yeah, early on in my father's dairying days, he had registered Guernseys through the 1960s. And when he made the decision to transition from a tie-stall barn into a freestall barn, he also made the decision to transfer the herd over into registered Holsteins. Early on in the 70s, he bought some good breeding stock, which we worked with, and Jan and I can both remember as we were growing up, working with some of those early cows, and we developed a passion. We showed cows with our brothers, and really had a desire to try to improve the herd over time. So as we got older and more involved when we were in our high school years and early college years, we had the opportunity to have some more input in the breeding of the Holstein herd, and really did our best to try to improve the herd over time. So back in those early years when we were really trying to build our herd, money was tight, and we had a few good cow families that we'd focused on, and a lot of other cows that were primarily commercial registered, but commercial type Holsteins. So we really decided we were going to focus and try to build the quality of our herd and develop some of those cow families that we started with. And at that point, we'd have to give a lot of credit to, we've got some neighbors who are also not too far away who had really developed their herds earlier than we had, and they were drawing international visitors. I would mention Welcome Stock Farm, the Pecks, and they're also my cousins and my uncle, as well as Clear Echo Farm, another cousin, and they're just located not too far away, a mile or two away. And we were able to eventually breed some cattle that may garner some interest from some AI studs and international embryo buyers, but we really weren't on the map at that point. And I'd have to hand it to them for when they had buyers at their farms. They were encouraging them to stop over to our place. And nothing's more helpful than having people who are already in the business. And that's really what got our feet wet. And our passion and our desire to continue and to raise the bar in our own herd was driven partially by them and their support and their help. And there's always a little bit of competition too.
So today we farm about 2,900 acres. We grow corn, mainly for silage, but we do some grain. We also grow alfalfa and grass mixes, and we do a little bit of soybeans. And the main reason, the main reason that we're farming is to produce high-quality forages so that we can have a herd of cows that produces a lot of high-quality milk. So one of the focuses we have here, and our cropping crew works on it every day, is to have highly digestible forages to make a lot of milk. So when we're looking at our cropping operation, many times we look at some BMR silage, but here in eastern New York, we work with a variety of soil types from light blow sand to heavy wet clay. So we have to pick and choose where we grow certain things to make our forages best fit for a highly digestible feed. Jeff and I have a brother who's a feed nutritionist, and he's done our nutrition work for the last 15 years. And we have a great relationship with him, and many times we throw around a lot of different ideas to least cost our ration, to look for the most possible amount of milk that we can make. And some of the discussions that we have are based on soil type here in eastern New York. We farm a variety of different soils. We farm poorly drained clay, where the best thing to grow is grass. We have real droughty sand, where we can put clear alfalfa and everything in between. So when we look at our cropping program, it's always a challenge. When do we harvest? And are we going to be harvesting to harvest the alfalfa at the correct time or the grass? So many times we look for a 28 to 30 day harvest window on our forages for our hay silage. We will sacrifice on some of the yields that we have just to look for higher quality feed. In our corn program, we pretty much grow everything for high digestible silage varieties, and approximately about 50% of our silage ground we grow BMR silage, again for higher digestibility and higher milk production. In our feeding program, we feed once a day. We start about 3:30 in the morning, and we look to get all the milk cow groups fed at least some feed, and then we go back and keep top dressing those groups until the correct amount, till we finish. With our varied soil conditions here in eastern New York, we generally have a high corn silage diet. It's our experience that we can grow corn silage more consistently than we can grow our hay crop. Therefore, sometimes in our ration we get up to about 80% corn silage, 20% haylage. Today we're about 60-40. We have some great digestible haylages this year. We're using about 57% forage in our diet, but that varies depending year to year and the digestibility of our feed. We try not to ever go below 50-50.
Quick overview is calves are born here on the farm. We house all of our baby calves in individual hutches. We feed milk replacer twice a day, and we're in the process of transitioning over to a milk pasteurizer. Calves are fed on an accelerated program. We push the intake up to 3.5 gallons of milk per day. Calves are weaned at about 60 days of age. We raise all of our heifers, and we raise between 1/3 and 1/2 of our bull calves, all of which get genomic tested for the possibility of entering stud. Once calves are weaned at about 60 days of age in our hutches, they're moved into this barn that we see behind us, which some folks will say looks a bit crowded, which it is. They're in this barn. They transition to group housing. They're fed a combination of hay and grain, and then they do move on to TMR at a little bit later date. Calves are in this barn from about 2 months up to 5 months, at which time they move to another location. They're grown there until about 11 months of age when we return them here to the home farm. All of the breeding of our virgin heifers is taken care of here on our home farm. And then once they're checked pregnant, they are moved again to another growing farm where we grow them up until springing. Cows are milked on our dairy 3 times a day. Average milk production as it stands right now runs 87 to 90 pounds per cow per day, about 3.7 butter fat and about 3.1 protein. Milk quality, we really focus on our milk quality. We would attribute a lot of that to sand bedding, as well as good management techniques and good techniques by our milkers in the parlor. Somatic cell will range between 80,000 and 120,000. We get a little bit higher in the warm months. In the cooler months, we can generally stay 80 to 100,000. Total cows, total production is running right around 80,000 pounds per day. As far as management of the cows, cows are all calved out in an individual pen. It's a mattressed area pen that we just bed down with shavings. We try to keep them very clean for not only the health of the cow, but the health of the calf. Cows are transitioned into a fresh group where we keep them in a very uncrowded group. We try to run about 85 cows and 120 stalls in our fresh group, just so that we can really take the stress off those cows and let them get on their way in lactation. As we move through the rest of our barns, most of our groups in 6-row sand-bedded free stalls, we will run around 120, sometimes up to 130% overcrowded. A situation that we, on a daily basis, would prefer not to have, but we tend to have a lot of extra cattle, so we're generally pretty full. Breeding program for the cows would consist of an aggressive glutamate and ovsync program to begin cows cycling early. In December of 2015, we added an activity monitoring system, which we've still been tweaking with, but we've seen some good results from. Cows are allowed to, I should back up, we really run an aggressive ET and IVF program. So we're implanting embryos on a real regular basis, IVF embryos fresh every 2 weeks. We also do some conventional ET flushes in between, and we do save heats, cows that are in heat, and we implant frozen embryos on off days as well. So our repro program is a bit of a tangled web to keep track of as far as when we're saving cows to be embryo recipients. But again, it's the people that make it happen, and they do a great job of keeping that in line. Average days in milk is a little higher than we'd like. It runs up to about 180 days in milk. Preg rates run right now in the low 20% to mid 20% range. We'd like to really be able to push that higher, but it becomes a challenge as we are saving cows to be embryo recipients as well, and we know that runs counter to getting some of those higher pregnancy rates. So there's a few main cow families that we've really worked intensively with, and just to give a quick description of a few of those, one cow family goes way back to some of the original registered Holsteins that my father bought back in the early 70s. One cow family came from a neighboring farm that they were a master breeder here in New York, the Hoig family, and we bought a cow that we developed some real good daughters of through generations. That main cow family that we purchased from a local farm back when my father started with registered Holsteins. We'd bred with that family and had a few generations of very good cows, and we eventually used some pretty good bulls, some high production bulls. And I'll always live with the fact that this is the first family that got us into marketing genetics to AI studs and to some embryo buyers. Another family descends from an excellent 94 Schottle. She was a daughter of a really good Durham. The Schottle's still in the herd today, 94 points, and we've got, I think, 5 or 6 excellent daughters, and some granddaughters of that Schottle have ranked really high as well. We've got some red carriers, a red carrier Olympian daughter that's made some really high daughters by Jedi, Modesty, and Espresso. Another branch of that family has produced some really high members. A super daughter of the Schottle was scored excellent 91, and she had a daughter by Alta Greatest. And the Greatest is just fresh for their second calf. Tremendously productive young cow. She was 88 points as a 2-year-old. And just fresh with her second calf, and she's made some really high ranking offspring as well. Those are some of the main families we work with, but we do try to keep a lot of diversity. We work with 8 or 10 different cow families easily right now, because we never know which family is going to make that next generation of really good high-ranking animals. But we really try to maintain a lot of diversity as we're picking our donors. As it stands now, our breeding program relies a lot on embryo transfer and IVF, as well as sire selection, and that's really important to me. We've always really tried to use the best bulls available. With the advent of genomics, our sire selection has moved off of proven bulls and almost exclusively to young, high-ranking genomic young sires. But we really try not to just choose those bulls blindly and take the highest bull. We do pay attention to the pedigree behind the bulls. We pay attention to the cow family behind the bulls. We really try to find young bulls that have it all. We really like high production. We search for bulls with high protein pounds, but we want to make sure that management traits are included in there. We really see the result of the difference in management traits in our herd. Somatic cell, productive life, DPR, calving ease. We really see differences in our cattle, and so we value having animals that rank high for those traits. Type is included in there as well. Udders are the most important type trait that we choose for. We don't necessarily choose for large animals. We'd prefer to have a little bit more moderate-sized animals, so we don't necessarily choose extremely high type scores, but we really want to have good scores for udder and foot and leg composite as well. 90% of the herd would be bred for high production, good management trait animals. We do segment off about 10% of our herd. They're bred a little bit differently. My brother and I both have kids that enjoy the show ring, and we enjoy marketing animals a little bit as well. So we do maintain a small segment of the herd that we breed for high type, and find a few animals to either sell or show for our kids on a regular basis. So when we talk about genomics, it's probably a bit of an interesting story because I think years ago, some of the very first animals that were tested for genomics were part of some of the original research that was done into the genomic program. So some of our animals can be found in that original database. When genomic testing first became commercially available and some of the bull studs were starting to do it and really use it for their selection, I admittedly would say that we were a little slow as far as adopting that information. We were maybe a little cautious, weren't sure of its value or how it was going to work for our operation. And I would say as a person who sells a lot of bulls in AI, I might have been a little bit slower than some other folks were as far as genomic testing a large number of animals. But we eventually caught up, and we ended up doing a lot of genomic testing. And over time, I think we've seen the value of that. We've really seen a tremendous improvement in the quality of our young cattle, our young, fresh 2-year-olds. We've seen an improvement in consistency, higher production, better type, and as I mentioned, the management traits are really important too. So the profitability, the overall profitability in our young cattle, I think is impressive. And we really think that that's a result of being able to select the really good genetics and shortening that generation interval. We've been extremely happy with the results that we've had so far. So the use of genomics over time, it's really meant a big change in our herd. Like I said, we've seen a big change in profitability. We're really impressed with the quality of the young cattle that we've got, and those are now the result of 2 and sometimes 3 generations of selection of bulls and cow families based on genomics. It has really increased the marketability of our herd as well. We selling a lot of embryos internationally. The demand for high-ranking bulls has been very steady, and it's always a challenge to find high-ranking bulls, but we're doing our best. And the market for those animals, both the high-ranking males and females, is exceptional. And as you see in some of the sales, high-ranking genomic females have the ability to sell really well too. So we've seen more demand for embryos from some international buyers. Those people that are looking to bring those high GTPI animals into their programs. We've seen an increased demand for embryos. It's interesting to me that we regularly host tours for some AI companies of international visitors, and they'll want to see some of the results of genomic breeding programs. And we'll get together 30, 40 young cows right out of our first lactation pens. And quite often it's interesting to hear folks ask, is this working? Are genomics working? Are you happy with these young bulls? And I'll always tell them, you don't have to ask me, have a look at the young cows. And to a person, I think they would agree that the genomic breeding program that we've been using has been a success. It's also shown itself in our herd. We're not really growing to a large extent. Our herd size is very much steady. We tend to use a lot of our heifers as embryo recipients, so our goal is to calve in most every heifer that's born on the farm. Therefore, we do have a lot of extra milking cows on a regular basis. Every year we're selling between 150 and 200 milking age females as a surplus crop. We developed some real good repeat buyers, and they've been extremely happy with first and second lactation cows that have been from our herd as far as their performance as they've gone on to those other herds. So between embryo sales, bull sales, some limited female sales on the young high genomic females, and a lot of young cow sales, it's meant a significant amount of income for our farm. As far as managing genetic information, we use a number of sources as far as evaluating bulls and so forth. But on the female side, Enlight is a really important program for us. We use it. I almost use it probably on a daily basis as we are looking at animals when I'm making breeding decisions, sorting our animals for sorting out which ones may be potential donors, sale consignments. I use Enlight on a regular basis, and it's been really helpful as far as being able to get that information quickly and use that information in making our management decisions. So we're in our transition barn where calves come from hutches and they're weaned and they're grown to about 5 months of age. And behind me you can see some of the results of our breeding program, and certainly a large portion of these calves are a result of an aggressive embryo transfer and IVF program. We really focus on working with high GTPI donors, a very small segment of our herd, maybe 10% of our herd. We do focus on higher type genetics. But the calves behind me would range from around 2,000 GTPI, parent average on the low side. I think some of the higher calves we're having born are in the 2,750 parent average neighborhood right now. We're working a lot of donors from a number of different families. The majority of the donors that we're working with are heifers, virgin heifers. They would be in the 2600, 2650 GTPI range, up into the low 2700s. 2710 or 20 would be some of the higher donors that we're working with at this point. We are IVFing 7 to 10 donors per every 2 weeks, as well as 4 to 5 conventional embryo flushes every 2 weeks as well. Service sires that we use are 99% genomic young sires. We will use an occasional proven bull, mainly on the type side. But the young sires that we're using are usually the very highest and the very best that we can find. Usually that translates into them being very young as well. We have some agreements with some AI organizations where we do get early pre-release semen, and we've been able to use those bulls with a lot of success. You know, some of the more recent calves that we've had born would be daughters of bulls like Alta Superstar, Modesty, Jedi, and bulls like that. So some of the very highest bulls of the breed, and the genomic breeding program that we've used, I'd have to say we're very, very happy with the results. So Holstein Association programs have been really important to us, to my brother, myself, family members, even when we were young. I'd have to say it was the basis for getting us extremely involved and interested in the cattle business and in the registered Holstein business. When we were young, we did a lot of showing, and that just served to develop our interest in better cows and the value of better animals. And over time, as we learned more and had more experience with cattle, we've grown to appreciate some of the services that Holstein offers. We are complete users, so we participate in all the programs. Classification is very important to us, and as my brother and I talk about it, we use classification as an information source on our cattle to evaluate our herd. We appreciate when we get comments from classifiers as far as what they see could be improved or what they think we're doing well. But also, classification certainly helps us on the marketing end too. Marketing Holstein genetics is a big part of our business, and certainly those classification scores help us build pedigrees and improve the marketability of our cattle. And as my brother would say, we just like having good cows in our barn. I think when we go to work, it's not just the owners that appreciate having good cattle. We have a lot of staff members that work for us as well, and those people grew up with Holstein programs. So they are interested in better cattle as well. It gives us the opportunity to provide our staff a little more engagement in our cattle when they know they're working with potentially exceptional individuals, or maybe they're working with an animal that won at the local show. It just brings an extra level of interest and engagement and dedication from them. So we really see value in that. Another area we see a lot of benefit from the Holstein programs is how we use them to tie into our retail business. Over time, and I think it's going to be even more important in the future, is for consumers to realize that we're able to not only track the health of that individual, the parentage of that animal. It really helps make that whole connection from plant to animal to food on their table. And the fact we're doing all that we can to make that as pure. When we're able to make that connection from plant to food to animal, it really makes a difference for the consumer. And we think that that's a really big part of our business, and it'll be even a bigger part of our business and more important for consumers in the future.
Today our milk business is 6 years old, and for quite a number of years before that, Jeff and I and our families discussed how we might get into the milk processing business. And this was something that our grandfather and my great-grandfather did starting back in the early teens. Their business continued through the early 60s when they exited processing milk, but our dairy farm continued. So all through the early 2000s, Jeff and I talked about how we might be able to gain some added value in how we could gain added value from producing milk here on the farm. And for us, it was a little bit of a logical choice, seeing as that our grandfather did it many years ago. We decided that we wanted to produce some fluid milk, and we knew it was going to be quite an investment. And some of the things that we talked about were that we were in Saratoga County, a little bit of an upscale county for New York State, and along with the Capital District where the state capital is, and we decided that we wanted to start home delivering our product. And we knew that in doing that, we'd have to have a really good product to sell. And in some of the discussions that we had over the years before we started, we knew that we already produced a high-quality raw product here on the farm, low somatic cell, low bacteria count, and we thought that we could take that raw product and translate it into a packaged product where we could set ourselves apart and be a little bit different from other milk that you might find on the shelf. So some of the decisions that we went through were not only to package milk in plastic containers, which most dairy processing facilities do, but also be a little different by processing and packaging in glass bottles. And one of the ways that we're able to set ourselves apart from other milk that you find on the shelf is really just by the taste. And one of the things that we're proud of that we've been able to accomplish in the short 4 months that we've been processing our own milk here on the farm is we think our milk just tastes better. We package it a couple different ways, but when you have some milk out of our glass bottles, quite frankly, it's just really, really good. And we get that compliment. It's not us that says it, it's our customers. Our customers email us, and they really enjoy our milk. We have customers that talk about their kids fighting over who's going to finish the milk at home. And we just love to hear that. All the hard work that everybody here at the farm does, from feeding the baby calves, putting in the crops, milking the cows every day, and finally packaging it here in our milk plant, those compliments keep us going. We've been home delivering milk now for 6 years, and when we started 6 years ago, it was really pretty interesting. We were fortunate to have a customer that used to get home delivery back when my grandfather did it. And, sitting and talking with him, and he was a teenage boy, and he talked about when, his mother would get the home delivery from, at that time, it was King Brothers Coldbrook Dairy, and my grandfather and his uncles delivered in the Saratoga area and around Saratoga Lake. So that was kind of neat when we first started. But today, delivering milk to people's homes, stepping up on the porch, opening the porch box, dropping in the glass bottled milk, and there's a 3 or 4 year old peeking out the window at you, watching their milk be delivered right to their doorstep. And it's always nice to hear some of the compliments that people give you. My kids will only drink the good milk. And if we run out and happen to go to the store because we don't have enough, I can't get them to drink the milk from the store. So those things are always great to hear. And, when you have customers telling you that, it really validates what you're doing every day, and it makes you feel good about being a dairy farmer. One of the things that I know he's always looking at are the health traits, and I think that translates into the milk that we bottle here today. We're looking for cows that have low somatic cell counts, and that over time, our genetics have improved, and our somatic cell counts generally run under 100,000 and as low as 75,000. And when we look at bottling a high-quality milk that's going to stand out on the shelf and have a long shelf life and a great taste, we feel that we've got the Holstein cow now gives us that opportunity to put that kind of product into a container for people to enjoy. And we're fortunate that we can start at the very beginning with our raw milk and the quality from our raw milk, and that translate right through to a great quality product that we're able to bottle and sell. Processing milk is a brand new venture to us, and it's been a steep learning curve. Today we process fat-free, reduced fat, whole milk, and our signature product is our chocolate milk. We also do half and half and heavy cream, and we decided that we would start out with fluid products and get that under our belt first. And so far, in the first 4 months that we've been processing and bottling, things are going quite well. Now, we sell a variety of different products on our truck when we deliver to our food service accounts. But for us, the fluid products and the way that we've set our plant up, that's what we're going to focus on for a period of time here before we decide to get into other dairy products. But down the road, we may look at buttermilk, ice cream. Certainly everybody loves ice cream, and that would be a fun one to do.
"25 minutes left in our meeting room here, so I think Jan and Jeff have just a few more comments they'd like to make before we get started with our question and answer. But so while Jan and Jeff are coming up here, I'd just like to take a quick second to introduce a few of my other Holstein Association USA colleagues are here. We've got our CEO, John Myers, in the back of the room. We have our National Sales Manager, Steve Peterson. Steve, if you could give a quick wave. And also our Communications Coordinator, Ashley Moan. So very happy to have my colleagues here with me today. So at this time, Jan and Jeff, if you guys would like to make any other comments, certainly feel free, and then we will open it up for questions from the audience.
Okay. We're working? Okay. Before we begin, we just, on behalf of my family and ourselves, we just wanted to thank the Holstein Association for nominating us for this. It's been fun putting the video together and being here, and for bringing us here to be able to share with you. So we just wanted to thank all the staff at the Holstein Association for having us. And as we wrap up our video, we really were thinking about a few of the main things. What is really important for us at King's Ransom and King Brothers Dairy. And it really comes down for us to about three things. And the first would be our location. And some people would consider, and we consider our location sometimes as a detriment for our business, and sometimes it's a benefit. We live in an area where the fields like to grow houses quicker than they like to grow corn, and it's an expensive place to live. It's not easy to buy land if you're a dairy, or if you're trying to purchase more land, or if you're trying to expand your business. And that's really one of the things that drove us into the retail business was because we have so many new neighbors and we've got a lot of people to live around us, we try to drive that into being a positive by utilizing our retail business to be able to sell direct and get the connection with us, our product, right straight to the consumer. So we really believe that our location is a benefit. In addition, when we market genetics, and I mentioned it in the video, we live in a great area for registered Holstein cattle. And we've got a number of really good neighbors that it really breeds a lot of excitement for what we do with Holstein genetics, and it makes it easier for those people who are interested to come to our area, because it's not just one farm that they want to stop at, it's 5 or 6, and it just makes it real easy. So therefore, we tend to get a lot of visitors and a lot of buyers, a lot of foreign, international buyers, and that really helps our business by living where we live and living with the quality of neighbors that have the great registered Holsteins. So that's number one. Number two is one of the things that really makes our business great is we both have a great passion for good cows. We enjoy working with the Holstein cow, trying to improve our herd on a daily basis. We are always working to make it better, to find better young cows that are going to make great old cows. It's an ongoing passion. I work a little bit more with the cows. He works a little bit more with the crop side of the business, but to have a partner who also loves good Holstein cows makes it a little bit easier on me. So I can spend a little bit more on semen and flushing cows and so forth. So that's number two. And number three is the biggest driver for the success in our business is the people. And we have an absolutely amazing group of people that work with us, an amazing staff, whether it's the guys that work with us on the crop side of the business, our people that work with us with cows and calves and taking care of the cattle, and also on our retail business, people that work in the plant, in our marketing, delivery people. We have absolutely by far the most amazing group of people we could ever hope for. And that far and away trumps everything else. We got great, great people that work with us. So those are the three keys for our business. So anyway, we'll take questions, I guess.
All right, if anybody has a question, I would just ask you, give a quick raise your hand. I'd like to try and use the mic if we could. Does anybody have a question to get us started this afternoon?
That was a great presentation. Appreciate it. I was wondering, you sell on the truck to home customers, and then it looked like you had a little store. Is that on the farm? And then do you have other retail outlets that buy from you?
So we started in 2010. We wanted to see if we could have a business that we could support, and could we invest the money in a processing facility. That was really the goal, was to be able to bottle our own milk. So how could we get into this business without spending a lot of money? And so we decided to home deliver milk. And that was back in 2010, and we made ourselves like a little farmer's market on wheels. And today, when you come to our store, that's kind of what you see. We have beef and milk from our farm, and then we go around in the summertime. We do sweet corn, vegetables, fresh fruit, a vegetable basket, local made peanut butter, yogurt, jams. So we probably have close to 200 different items that people can choose from on the home delivery route. That's run a little bit separate than our food service. Food service started in 2012. We bought a small distributor in Saratoga, and that business delivered to about 50 restaurants. So that helped build our volume to be able to build our processing facility. But there, we now sell our milk and cream, but we buy and resell some other products, butter, cream cheese, cottage cheese, eggs, to supply restaurants. So right now, about 60% of our business is food service, restaurants, and some small mom and pop stores, and 40% of our milk sales go to our home delivery customers.
And it's probably important to point out that in the beginning we had other people bottle milk for us, and for those first 4 or 5 years while we were growing that home delivery business. So we've been delivering our own product for the last 5 months.
All right, did I see some?
Often when suburbia moves into the farm area, you have a problem with manure disposal. How do you handle all that?
So our manure disposals, much like many other farms, we have liquid storage lagoons. We primarily spread in the spring and the fall, and we do some in the summer as well on some hay crop. But we do our best. We have our neighbors at different times. We'll call and say, "Hey, I have a party. I've got a wedding," and we'll stay away. And there's always some complaints. Generally, every now and then we have to make a house call and see a neighbor or somebody that's frustrated with us. But usually we can work through that and make it work out.
We do our best. Relationships with the community are huge, and every year we rent from how many people? A lot. We rent a lot of land, and we rent from a lot of landowners. And every Christmas he spends I don't know how many days going around every landowner, and they get a pie and how we doing, and they appreciate that a lot. Those connections. Yep.
All right, any other questions?
How many do you employ?
About 17 full-time people on the dairy side, on the farm side, and 5 or 6 part-time people there, and 5 full-time people maybe that's 6.
5 or 6 in the milk
5 or
business.
6 in our milk business. We run them as 2 separate businesses, but that's growing a little bit all the time. So that's why we're questioning our numbers. But
Yeah, I was just wondering with your dairy products, the market that you're in, are you getting a lot of requests for other products such as the whole organic, the non-GMO, all these great inventions? And what is your answer to that? How do you deal with that?
So we haven't had. We certainly get those requests. We like to.
hang on, before you go though. So to be clear, we use GMO crops and we are not organic. Go ahead.
No, that's a good point to know that.
To know where we stand.
Generally, you can make that a really long answer to somebody, and there's certainly people out there that know. Some people don't know it all, and they say I want antibiotic-free and no hormones, and they really don't know what they're asking about. So you have to ask them some questions, and you can usually figure out how much that person knows, and that most people don't realize that all milk doesn't have antibiotics in it if you're going to sell it in the store. So a little bit of conversation goes a long way. Some people, you're never going to be able to change their mind, and you have your opinion and they have theirs, and you have to move on. But many people think they want organic, but in my, I guess this is in some of my experiences, they say they want organic because they think that's what they want, but when you go and you talk to them about the practices that you do on your farm and how you care for your animals and how you make your product, and you can give them a little bit of feeling of how you do things and give them a connection, generally that works pretty well.
I would say a big piece of why consumers want to buy from a business like ours is they get to make that connection, and they might get to talk to him, or they might get to talk to me or another family member, and they're able to maybe put their trust in the fact that we're doing things the way they would want it done. And when we're able to assure them that we believe in the practices we use on the farm, that they're safe, that I feed the products, the milk that we produce, I feed my own kids at home. And if they have questions, we're kind of an open book. We're willing to share with them the reasons why certain things happen on a farm. And obviously we all know as dairy professionals, there's so much misinformation. People really don't understand. And when they were able to connect with you on a personal basis, and you're able to have that conversation with them, as my brother says, it really gives them that level of comfort and security, and I think that makes them a lot happier to know what they're buying, who they're buying from. So.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? Got one up front here.
With this down dairy economy compared to 2 years ago, how does that work with your bottling and selling your own product compared to selling to the cooperative or the more traditional model?
So, as it stands right now, we are bottling still a small percentage of the milk that we produce. So the overwhelming majority of our milk is sold like how we used to sell it. So we did start building our plant back in 2014, and we had a lot of our friends that kind of chuckled at us, saying, "What the heck are you doing that for? This milk price is so great," and it had kind of been a long-term plan of ours. So it hasn't grown to the point where it's made a huge impact yet, but we're hoping it. We're looking forward to continued growth. So, I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Do you feel like it's taken some of the risk out of the business, having that percentage of your milk that you know?
I think it's going to shift the risks to different areas. So, it's great to sit back and say, I can control my own milk price. It's great to say, I'm going to get all of that retail dollar. But as soon as you do it for a while, as soon as we started to home deliver milk, we realized in the beginning we charged no delivery fee because we wanted to get customers. Well, as soon as you start tabulating what that costs to put a man in a truck and fuel and everything, oh my goodness. And you realize how much money you were losing. We realized it quickly. So to think that you're selling milk for $3, $3.50, $4 a gallon and you're getting all that, it's not reality. It's a whole different set of risks that bring, I don't believe it's going to take all the risk out of dairying just because we're selling our product direct, unfortunately. Sounds great, but we're learning quick. We're fairly new at it, but it's a challenge.
More people, more regulations, that right there in itself adds a lot of work. There's already a lot of things to get done, and when we're dealing with the customer, as the end user, they don't want to know that you're an hour late because you had to fix the tire on the truck or the cooler wasn't working correctly and you had, so there's a lot more to do and another set of people to help get that done, but that's all got to be organized and managed.
All right, very good question. We've got about 10 minutes left, so time for a couple more questions. We've got another one right here.
What percentage you get the success in ET transfer program? Embryo transplant? What percentage you getting success in embryo transplant?
That's a big challenge. The question it was, what percentage success rate are we getting in embryo transplants? It's never good enough. We've gone from using heavy conventional embryo transfer to, at times, almost 100% IVF, and now we're back to different percentages of both. IVF, we're running in the neighborhood of about a 40% conception rate, and that would be all grades of embryos, embryos that are implanted into cows and to heifers. And we are constantly tweaking. And I mentioned in the video, it's a tangled web of our rules and how we hold cows. And for a while, we were putting embryos into third and fourth lactation cows. And we realized we just weren't getting the success rate there, so we've dialed that back. And we're only putting them in first and second lactation cows. And so we're always trying to dial it in and do better. We have rented recipients in other places where they've run close to 50% with IVF embryos, conventional embryos, a little bit higher than that, maybe 60% fresh embryos. But it's a challenge. The recipient pool, the quality embryos you're dealing with. It's great when all the donors make quality number one embryos and they're all virgin heifers, and then that's a lot better. But we put in lower quality embryos. And do we work with international? So we sold embryos, yes, internationally, yes. Not to India, but there's always a first day, right? But we've most of our embryos have been sales to usually on our higher GTPI animals, and sales to European, Japan, some to China. But then we've got another kind of a secondary market where we work with some of those really good pedigreed cows that have great, some of those really nice pedigrees, great classification scores, great production records. And so.
I don't know if I got the information correct, but I think I heard 2,900 acres. Are those fully been for growing your own feed, or do you sell out of those 2,900?
Both. Most of all the forage, all the grain, corn. We do raise plus or minus 200 acres of soybeans that we generally sell, but the rest of it we use ourselves.
Our our land resources are, we operate some really high quality land, and we also operate some that's quite marginal. But we rent it in order to utilize it for our manure management plan, to make sure we have enough acres to spread on. This year we had phenomenal yields. We've got a lot of extra crop. Other years when some of those soils don't perform quite as well, so we have to kind of balance that out a little bit.
With such an aggressive IVF program, are you to the point where you're either a donor or a recip on your farm? And what percentage of your milking herd would be a result of embryo transfer?
I'll answer the last question first. I don't know, but I'm going to guess over half of our milking herd would be the result of embryo transfer. It's almost to that point where you're a donor or recipient. I would say for our heifers, we overwhelmingly flush. The majority of what we do work with is our heifers, just because they're at a higher genetic level. We probably flush about 3 to 4% of our heifers, and the next 10% we would breed AI, and then 80-ish% would be embryo recips. One of the big challenges that we have with our milking herd, as you just said, we've kind of dialed back from putting embryos into the older cows, and we do have a need to sell a lot of cows. We've built a really good market for young cows, and we need to sell a couple hundred at least every year. We try to calve in all of our heifers so that we have the opportunity to use them as recipients. So when we have an overabundance of heifers, we turn those into cows, and we need to sell cows. So the most valuable cows to sell are usually the young cows. So usually we're holding on to older cows a little bit longer, which takes away some recips from us, which is a challenge, because once they get a little bit older, their success rate with embryo transfer goes down, so then we're trying to use those. We're just breeding them to keep our days of milk down. And so it's a balancing act. If in a perfect world, I'd sell older cows and keep all the young ones, which would give me more recips. But we got to go to where the markets are too.
How many lactations do you hold the cow?
The question was, how many lactations do we hold our cows? Oldest cows would be 10th lactation in our herd. Not a lot, but a few. And we really take pride in having a lot of old cows. To me, that's a pretty good indication that we do a good job taking care of them. And it shows. We keep a very low cull rate. And when we look at what we call sand bedding helps, good genetics help, we have great people taking care of them, and it generates a lot of extra cattle. So I don't know the average lactations in our herd. It's in that 3 to 4 neighborhood.
So we've got just a couple minutes left. I think we'd have time for one more quick question if anybody had one. Oh, got one last question here.
What is it if you've got it a long-range goal on percentage of production to retail?
Percentage of production toward retail?
100. I think that'll take us quite a while, but we've got it. We might better try to sell it.
Yep. Our equipment has the capacity, but one thing we've quickly learned is finding customers is not easy. And our goal is not to be the low price competitor. So it's easy to go undercut everybody's price, I think, but we're not doing that. So we really believe we produce a premium product. So I think it's going to take a little longer to develop those markets and people that appreciate it.
What's been one of your latest tank averages on butter, fat, and protein in your milk yield?
Well, we quoted 3.731, and that's kind of our summertime. And right now we're running 4.2 and 3.2 protein, true protein. And I mentioned sire selection in the past. We've always thought about international buyers, and we sell a lot of bulls to AI, so protein pounds was always a big number. And that's changing a bit for us, because in our milk business, fat is much more important. We're not going to get paid for the protein that's in that milk, but if we can produce more cream, there's going to be a lot more value to the milk. So we're already starting to change our focus there a little bit. A little bit heavier focus on fat.
All right, so really excellent questions this afternoon. Thanks so much, everyone. We are running up on the 3 o'clock hour, so I think we're going to have to end our formal session now. I'm sure Jan and Jeff would be happy to, definitely give them a round of applause. I think Jan, Jeff, and their family will be happy to hang around for a couple minutes. If anybody has a question that we didn't get to over the mic, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer that one-on-one with you. I would just like to thank everyone again so much for your time this afternoon. We certainly have a little bit of chocolate milk left in the cooler, so I'd invite you to try some of the great King Brothers Dairy chocolate milk back there. Again, Holstein staff will be hanging around for a little bit as well, so we'd love to visit with you if you have any questions. We also do have a booth over in the main level of the Coliseum, so if you're around later this week, we'd love to visit with you. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.